What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we got big injury updates across the SEC for Jayden Daniels, Brock Bowers, and Ole Miss loses an Ole lineman. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, let's jump into it. Plenty to discuss. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff.
Around the conference.
And we start over at Georgia. Could we see Brock Bowers back on the field for Georgia as early as this weekend in their big home game against Ole Miss? Kirby Smart talking about it this week. He said Brock Bowers has been working hard. He's doing all he can in terms of trying to get himself into better shape and get better. He's back to running now, running on dry land, and he keeps getting better. That's kind of the MO of this injury. Every kid we've had who's had it, week 1 they did this, week 2 they did that, week 3, week 4, he's right on schedule for what he's been doing. So Kirby asked on Wednesday, it's the likelihood of Brock being back out there this weekend. He said, look, I think there's a lot of markers he has to hit. There's more than just the marker of sheer speed. One of the first things you look at with this injury is acceleration and deceleration, not GPS speed. So when decel numbers and your acceleration numbers get closer to what your norm is, because they have a baseline on all these guys, and you feel more comfortable about it. But then you have to get to the point, straight line speed is not football, unfortunately, so maybe on kickoff or something else, but the other areas you have to look at. So there's a lot of different things he has to hit here. Now, Bowers suffered that ankle injury, had to go undergo that tightrope surgery following Georgia's game against Vanderbilt back on October 14th. So it's only been a couple of weeks here, but Kirby's saying that he said bringing Brock Bowers back this season, not going to put his future at risk. But he said it's just about checking those boxes. He said he's not at a greater risk of long-term career type things if he comes back. What it boils down to is, can he help us win? Is he comfortable with that? Can he do the things he needs to do to be able to help us? And he's got to hit those numbers, check those boxes. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson talking to the media this week. He said Brock's been looking very good. I've been watching him. Seems like he's progressing fast. He's been running. I heard he hit like 19, 20 miles per hour, something like that. He's progressing. He's looking to get back. We're excited for him to get back because we certainly miss him on the field. So, look, probably not this weekend, but Georgia, a couple tough games with Ole Miss. Then they got to go to Knoxville to go play Tennessee next week. So we will see when they get Brock Bowers back. Of course, they get Georgia Tech and most likely going to the SEC championship game if everything goes their way. All right, other injury updates over at LSU. We are in wait-and-see mode if Jayden Daniels will take the field for LSU's home game against Florida. Brian Kelly talking about it on Wednesday, of course, following taking that hit from Dallas Turner that knocked him out of the game on Saturday against Alabama. Brian Kelly saying, look, Jayden worked out Wednesday morning. It appears as though that workout went well, which is the last stage before he's cleared for non-contact practice. So expecting him to practice later today. If all things go well, then he could be cleared for contact Thursday. Kelly also said while Daniels did not practice Tuesday, he had a productive workout Wednesday morning, and they'll make a decision. Are they going to have to go with backup Garrett Nussmeier and start to get him ready, prepare him with the game plan for Florida, or is Jayden good? Kelly said, it certainly triggered our protocol for concussion. I don't know what the medical bar is for that, but I'll tell you, he has moved through these stages to the point where he's worked out, ran 20 miles per hour today, and will be able to practice in non-contact fashion. If he goes through that practice, then we'll decide his preparation level relative to Garrett Nussmeier. Now, Billy Napier talking to the media on Wednesday, and he said, look, it's part of the challenge this week, the uncertainty around the LSU quarterback situation. We're going to have to prepare for both quarterbacks. Both of them have experience. They've both done a nice job of moving their offense. I think Nussmeier, because of kind of the flow of the last couple of years. He's had an opportunity to play some significant snaps and play in some meaningful spots. So they both do a good job of making decisions and moving the ball. So, look, obviously Jayden Daniels is, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And Garrett Nussmeier looked good in spots when he's played, but obviously he's not up to the caliber of Jayden Daniels. But LSU may not need that. LSU may be able to just put any quarterback out there and beat Florida this weekend. We will see, but more on that in just a bit. And then one more injury, or a couple other injury tidbits here over at Mizzou. Eli Drinkwitz gave an update on wide receiver Luther Burden, who suffered an injury in the game against Georgia last week. He said, I haven't seen him practice today. He said, but yesterday he was in a green jersey, didn't have a whole lot of reps, and we'll just have to see how he progresses. Won't know more about that probably until after today's practice, but I would anticipate Friday would be the first time we'll have a real feel on whether or not he's going to play in this game against Tennessee or not. Burden has been a big part of Mizzou's offense, so if he is missing, it'll be a big loss for Brady Cook and the Missouri offense. Over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman updating some of his injuries he's had. Wide receiver Andrew Armstrong, defensive tackle Tank Booker, and offensive tackle Patrick Kudus are all dealing with injuries. Pittman saying, I feel good about Andrew Armstrong and Tank Booker playing this week against Auburn. Probably a major question mark on Patrick. That ankle, even though he's moving around a little bit, don't know how much availability he would have on Sunday. But Andrew Armstrong's been one of the go-to targets for KJ Jefferson this year, so it would be big if he is out there. And lastly, on the injury front, over at Ole Miss, well, it's actually tying it into an A&M story. Shamar Turner, punched offensive lineman Micah Pettis in the groin area in that Ole Miss A&M game on Saturday. Shamar Turner was not suspended by the SEC or by A&M, but he did take to social media to apologize for his actions. Said the frustrations boiled over, and it took the shot at Pettis after the play. On Tuesday on social media, Lane Kiffin took the opportunity to appreciate Turner taking the high road, wished him the best of luck the rest of the season. Bad news on Wednesday. Reports out of Ole Miss that their right tackle, Michael Pettis, suffered a serious injury in practice. And one report saying it was his foot, another one saying it was his ankle, but did not practice on Wednesday and could be missing their big right tackle there for this big game against Georgia this weekend. So big loss there for Ole Miss if that is the case. Now, granted, foot or ankle, whatever it is, had nothing to do with the groin. I was just tying that into that's where we last heard Michael Pettis. He got punched in the groin by Shamar Turner over the weekend. So anyway, nonetheless, big blow there for Ole Miss if they're missing one of their key offensive linemen against Georgia. All right, we got plenty more tidbits to get to going around the conference in just a second. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We'll go more around the conference in just a sec. Look, guys, I want to remind you, we spend a lot of time talking together. We get fired up on wins and losses, who starts, who sits. And today, have a chat about something more personal, whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage. You are covered thanks to our partners at Jace Medical. Life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply with Jace Medical, even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, whatever it is. You can go online right now at Jace Medical, Jase, medical.com. Receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer said this about Jace: I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of our daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered antibiotic kits. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than normal pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get peace of mind for having a year supply of any daily medicine, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use that promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase at jacemedical.com. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC. I want to remind you guys, every Friday, 10 a.m. Central. We got our Locked On College preview show on all of our Locked On YouTube channels. Find it right here on Locked On SEC. Kind of a bonus episode every week. So we're talking all things SEC here. They're talking all things around the college football world. They're getting you set for the weekend that is to come. All right, let's dive back into it as we get you set for SEC Week 11 with more tidbits going on around the conference. And our next stop, big game Saturday morning. Going to be really intrigued by this one, Kentucky and Alabama. And Mark Stoops raving about Alabama this week on his media availabilities, raving about Alabama's defense and their secondary. And he said, look, they're really special. He said, you expect that. Seems like in and year out, Bama always has high picks in their secondary. Even with the addition of Caleb Downs, their freshman, he just adds another level. I think their nickel is a fantastic player, and Malachi Moore, the corners can always cover. So just a really tremendous group. He also went on to say that Dallas Turner is a guy that can wreck a game very quickly. So he's a guy that you got to account for. We got to be very smart with our protections. Quarterback's got to be smart holding on to the football, making sure we're not holding on to it too long. Devin Leary going to have a really good game if Kentucky is going to hang in this one with Alabama. Again, early, noon Eastern up in Lexington, Alabama and Kentucky. Now, on the flip side, over at Alabama, Nick Saban talking about the test they will face from Kentucky. Saban saying this week, I think they have some really good players. I think they've played well all year long. They got a really diverse group. Arian Brown, obviously a really good player, very fast, good return man. Devin Leary is tough, competitive, good passer, does a great job of managing and doing what he needs to do to make their offense work, run and pass. So the guy's really smart and has done a good job of executing everything we've seen all year long. And of course, Ray Davis in the backfield, very, very good as well. So we will see what Kentucky's able to do. Opening tailgate lots a little early Saturday morning. Mitch Barnhart wants the Kentucky faithful out there and lubed up and ready to go for the early kickoff at 12 noon from Kroger Field. All right, other tidbits around the conference. Over at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin talking about going to Athens to play Georgia. He said, look, obviously a big challenge this week. Georgia's playing really well. They'll play the number one team in the country for a number of years. I can't remember the stat. They're 40-something, 42-1 or something like that in their last 43 games. It's a challenge to play in Athens and to play there at night. So kind of feel like nobody gives us a shot, which is a good way sometimes. I relate it to playing with house money. What do you got to lose? Nobody expects you to win. Lane Kiffin going on to say, when you're playing with house money, it allows you to play and coach you looser. You're not so uptight. You're not tense. You're not stressed. So kind of interesting, Lane Kiffin saying that the pressure's kind of off in this one when you're playing a team so dominant as Georgia, who's won so many games. Kind of, hey, nobody expects us to win. We're not supposed to win this game. So maybe the pressure comes off that way. But Lane Kiffin said, look, if the game starts to go the other way or is close late, there's more pressure on you when you're the number one team and you're on such a win streak. So the 8-1 Rebels, 9-0 Bulldogs, Saturday night, 7 Eastern on ESPN. On the other side, Kirby Smart talking with the media about this matchup, and Kirby asking the faithful at Sanford Stadium to show up and be as loud as possible. He said, look, they have a huge impact, and we need the fans. I'm counting on them to have a huge impact. Ole Miss has played in some tough stadiums, not only this year, but last year. They've gone across the SEC West, seen all the tough places to play, and it's not going to be foreign to them to play in a tough environment. So they need to create a great environment. The crowd needs to have an impact and pull in the same direction for our players. One more tidbit, Kirby, talking about Pete Golding being the DC at Ole Miss and doing a good job of turning that defense around this year. He said, well, look, Pete doesn't have the exact same players he had at Alabama. I think he's done a good job making his scheme, and there's similarities there, but you don't just do the scheme. No defense coordinator just goes, oh, well, I'm going to cookie cutter this. This is what I do. This is what I believe in. You do what fits your system. And Pete has done a good job there. So be interesting to see that one between Ole Miss and Georgia on Saturday night. Over at LSU, Brian Kelly talking about preparing for Florida and quarterback Graham Mertz. He said on Wednesday that Mertz has really settled in nicely in the Gators offense. I think he's in really good control of what they do offensively, throwing close to 75% completion percentage, taking care of the football. Really does a nice job getting the ball to their elite players and their playmakers. Brian Kelly calling their receivers really mature, poised, and I think really effective in the style of that offense that Coach Napier has put together. Meanwhile, over at Florida, Billy Napier talking about his return to the state of Louisiana. Of course, he coached at ULL before leaving for Gainesville a couple of years ago. Napier said, look, our time in Louisiana was fantastic. I think I'm really appreciative of the people in Acadiana and Lafayette for just the first-class experience, not only for myself, but my family. We've got kids from Louisiana. I think any time you go back home to your home state, there's an element that is significant. I know our guys will be excited. Playing the SEC every week presents a great opportunity, and there's always some great challenges for each opponent we play. So LSU and Florida Saturday night in Death Valley. Over at Tennessee, Josh Heupel talking about a reunion game this week as he takes on Missouri. He, of course, spent 2 seasons at Missouri in 16 and 17 as their OC and quarterbacks coach before he left for the job at UCF and then ultimately ended up with the Vols. Heupel reflecting back on his time at Missouri on Wednesday. So when I think back to that time period, I think about the people first and foremost. A lot of people that were influential. Still have a lot of those people that are with me, former players that played there, young coaches that have been with me over 6 years. But what we were able to build there from where we took over to when we left, really proud of what we did there. Heupel and Tennessee looking for a big win over his former school in Missouri. Over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman talking about KJ Jefferson with a couple of big records on the line. Tremendous career that KJ Jefferson has had, but ready to break some more career records. He said, look, I think he's playing as well as he played Saturday. I think that's the key. Setting records is over longevity, obviously, but when you're playing well and setting records, I think it means even more. What a nice game KJ had Saturday for the program. I think he was a big key and a reason for turning the program around. Certainly this year has been disappointing with all the close losses, but our season's not over. KJ's been as valuable as anybody. We've had him in our program and very happy that he is our quarterback. So we'll see what other Arkansas records KJ Jefferson can break this weekend. Their opponent, the Auburn Tigers. Hugh Freeze making his return to the state of Arkansas. Freeze never coached at Arkansas, but he was the head coach at Arkansas State in 2011 after a stint as the OC. And Hugh Freeze talked about coming back to the state of Arkansas. He said, great atmosphere. Obviously, I still have a lot of friends in the state and know a lot of people there. My experience there when I was at Ole Miss was not good, but we had some awful weather both times. And last year at Liberty, we caught a beautiful day, which was helpful for us. But their kids seem to handle the elements there a little better than ours back in the day. Went on to say, I think Sam Pittman has done a really nice job holding his team together. And I know what it's like to go through a stretch of games that he just went through, but he's right there in every game. I think they will be extremely motivated to keep their hopes of a postseason alive, trying to get a win this weekend. Tigers and Razorbacks, 4 p.m. on SEC Network on Saturday. And a couple more notes here over at Mississippi State. Zach Arnett commenting on Will Rogers, his quarterback, been missing in action the last couple of weeks with injury. And Zach Arnett saying on Wednesday, no new update. Will Rogers is practicing. Obviously, we have a few more days until game time, so a couple more practice opportunities. Medical experts will make a final determination on his availability. So day-to-day, I guess, would be the right terminology for him. And over at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher was asked how the simple presence of an offensive mind like Bobby Petrino can help the Aggies. Said, look, a lot of things like personal relationships with players, you're going to be able to get your roster going. You've seen people who think could leave, might leave, hopefully don't want to leave, all those things. But having that relationship with the OC and keeping things together, certainly something that we think can help us. But we will see what happens with Texas A&M this offseason as, of course, his Jimbo Fisher, one of those names that could be on the hot seat. But that report from Brent Zwerneman out the other night saying that Jimbo most likely to get another year there at Texas A&M. All right, we got a few more SEC tidbits we're going to hit on right after this. You are watching and listening to Locked On SEC. And, of course, a quick message from our friends over at Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It is just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season upon us, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specialist League. We've been telling you guys about this. I had a friend at work who was doing it as well. I thought it was really cool. You could take, like, say, LeBron James and Travis Kelce and do a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. So, like, Travis Kelce has 6 catches. LeBron has 5 3-pointers made. Boom. You hit the over if that's what you pick. So it's all up there for you at Prize Picks. You need to go check them out. They even offer the reboot policy. So your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets hurt. So for football and basketball games, if you have a player who leaves the game in the first half, doesn't come back in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use our code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use our promo code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. And a couple tidbits before we get out of here. Brad Nessler over at CBS saying that this week's game of Missouri and Tennessee, he said this is a must-win for Tennessee to stay alive in the SEC East title race. He said, I think it's a really even matchup going into the season. Everybody expected Tennessee to be way above Missouri, and it hasn't been that way. So Missouri and Tennessee both 7-2, 3-2 in the SEC play. Monster game for either side. If Missouri can win this, have a chance to get to maybe say 10-2 and get to a New Year's Six Bowl. For Tennessee, they keep hope alive. You win this one, and Ole Miss beats Georgia next week. Georgia comes to Knoxville with the SEC East, driver's seat on the line. So a lot to play for. Some TV ratings news. Week 10 of the college football had some big matchups in the SEC and some massive ratings. The top 2 games in the country in terms of ratings, you guessed it, LSU, Bama, and Missouri, Georgia. LSU, Bama was a 4.6, so about 8.8 million viewers tuned in, and Mizzou, Georgia was a 3.8 rating. That was 7 million viewers. Texas A&M and Ole Miss, they just missed the top 10, coming in at number 11 a week ago. So, look, no surprise. SEC football games always highly rated and always pulling some of the biggest ratings in college football. And, of course, look, had some star power last week, too, with a lot of the big names playing. Jayden Daniels, Jalen Milroe, the Alabama defense, Carson Beck at Georgia, what Missouri's been doing. So, really, really cool stuff there. And one other football tidbit, the NFL sent out a memo on Wednesday with some interesting news regarding college all-star games. According to Adam Schefter of ESPN, the NFL informed all teams that college football juniors will now be allowed to partake in all-star games like the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, and the HBCU Legacy Bowls. Before Wednesday, of course, only college seniors could play in those games. It was considered a reward. But Schefter said 69 college juniors in the draft last year were unable to play in an all-star game. So more events will equal more college athletes getting the opportunity to play and star in front of NFL teams. But can we still call it the Senior Bowl? I know Jim Nagy's done such a good job over there with the Reese Senior Bowl for so many years, and we make the annual trip. It's always fun to catch up with some of the SEC guys who are taking their talents to the next level. And look, you're going to have a lot more star power doing it this way, but it just feels a little funky, right? Like if there was an old lineman who may be considered a middle round pick, but he played all 4 years at school, he gets to go to the Senior Bowl and maybe start on the offensive line. Now he may get knocked down the depth chart if there's a more talented junior that wants to go and showcase his talents. I mean, again, from a star standpoint, this is great for the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and stuff like that. But it's also going to take away from some of those 4-year guys who maybe weren't highly thought of in draft circles, but get to that Senior Bowl week, showcase what they do. And we've seen it. There are guys who jump up draft boards and some of them become second, third round picks, even guys become first round picks. I could think back to, last year, some of the guys we saw out there. Tank Dell from the University of Houston. He showcased his talents. Now he's starting for the Houston Texans, and they took him, I think, in the third round. So people were like, it's a little high, but ended up working out for him. Some guys throughout the SEC. Dak Prescott had a great week at the Senior Bowl years ago, and Cowboys took a chance on him, and look at what became of him. So anyway, I don't know if it's necessarily a good or bad thing. I guess in the end, we'll have to see, but definitely going to have way more talent. And so looking forward to making our annual trip to the Senior Bowl, but going to have to call it the Junior and Senior Bowl, I guess now, because it's going to be not just seniors there. And that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. And make sure you subscribe. Check us out. We got the video version up on YouTube. We got the audio version still on Apple iTunes, Spotify, all that. Keeping you up to date with all the latest news going on around the SEC. Friday's episode coming up tomorrow. We will make our picks for the weekend, give you all of our SEC Week 11 picks. And I think we did pretty well last week. We need to go back and look at the results. But, we'll break it all down, tell you what to watch for in all the SEC games happening this weekend. And enjoy this week, guys, because next week is an absolute cupcake week. It stinks. There's a couple big games. Obviously, Georgia, Tennessee will be the headliner, but a lot of crappy non-conference games happening next week. So we'll keep you engaged this week with a lot more SEC on SEC slate. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.